I just want to say you did a very good job. So good job. It's that thing where you're actually kind of smart. Things you say make you sound dumb.
Yeah, we both do that.
What's that called?
Nope.
Yeah, but you're a little different, Dad.
Stop saying sure! Oh, it drives me crazy!
Are you seeing clear? Are you seeing clear?
I think most people just ignore the tough questions. This isn't Minecraft. This is real life.
You are hilarious.
That was not the dog, Dad. That was you.
Yeah, to solve this, we have to completely ignore the main problem.
That makes literally no sense to me. I just want to die.
And that, my friend, is one of my favorite things about you. Hey, welcome to Renaissance Radio, listening on your dog walk. Thank you, Susan. I've got Harley here for our second...
Hey, good to be back.
Let's go, bro. Like our second segment of... What did we decide the name was? We did a listener poll, and based on the input...
Yeah, all the listeners gave us the same suggestions.
Now, to be fair, there were no listeners because we didn't do a poll. So, like, that was 100% true with the exception of the information that we said.
Yeah, I still stand by my statement, though.
That all the listeners, which is us.
Right.
I listen to you and you listen. And the reason for that is that we are recording prior to the scheduled release of the first segment. And so this is still Renaissance Radio, but this is a regular segment we're going to release on Wednesdays called...
Disrupitated,
right?
by
Which is
Harley
a word...
Alabi.
Now, so here's why the name was this way. So obviously Disrupitated, we all know what that means, but the reason I changed it to by Harley is only one. Essentially, here's the view. I am being disrupitated by Harley. The other reason...
I woke up feeling a little disrupitated.
But you can't, because it's by Harley. It's not to Harley. So, but here's let me just tell you from my brain why I did it that way exactly, and why with is not the right answer, but by is the right answer. Because I had a vision, a clear vision. I could touch it. I could smell it. And I don't know what it smelled like, but I could smell it. There's an essence about it of a product line called Disrupitated by Harley.
I think it smelled like the beach.
Like, you know how it says by Versace.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Or like by Marc Jacobs.
Right.
And so I'm really excited about a very high-end release of a couple products that look like they're by a designer named Harley, who's completely uninvolved in the design process. That's my absolute goal. Thanks for coming back, man. I'm really excited. As most people know by now, Harley and I work together in a day job. The Lord will not allow us to work separately.
Yeah, no matter what. So, I mean, whether it was our job day trading together, or it's our job as city
underwater
plumbers.
karate instructors. Remember
Yeah,
that gig we did? That
dude.
underwater karate instruction.
That was quite the job.
Yeah. So you're gonna have a little trouble interpreting what's true here. Let me take a sip of coffee. So what's true is we've worked together for 3 jobs, which is actually not like we're not big time job switchers. It was over a year at each situation, but I think we're in a spot where we can really enjoy and thrive. I mean, we'll see how this ages. But
it'll be at least another 2 or 3 months.
No, stop it. Hey, by the way, did I tell you that Corey and I are working on a product fully committed to my day job?
I don't think so.
Yeah, there's going to be some products that come out because that's a phrase we say all the time. We know that it's funny and it's tongue-in-cheek, but we want our listening audience, if someone from our career comes, we're not making that up. We are fully committed to our day job. That's the thing that Harley and we actually carry quite a bit of responsibility in our role. And so...
I need that as a sticker on my computer.
I carry quite a bit of responsibility in my
fully
role.
committed to my day job.
Well, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're doing that. And so it's kind of tongue-in-cheek because anytime we talk about our aspirations or our goals, we want to be really clear. And that's not always true. Like, there are people that I've met, and it's an open secret with their company. Like, we've talked to people who go, I want to do this for the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
We're licensed insurance agents from
That's
a previous role.
That's truth.
That's the truth. And wasn't there somebody we talked to that they literally, there was a middle manager who said, I want to do this for 2 years.
And start a brokerage.
And then I want to start a brokerage. And so that was really cool. They saw him as a talent that they wanted to have temporarily. And frankly, if someone says, I want to do something for 2 years, they're already 9 months past the average retention rate.
Yeah, you're probably happy to sign up for that commitment.
So we both, through different times of our lives, Harley coming up, me having a restart in my life, started. We started
sideways.
Yeah. I didn't want to be condescending about it, but my career aspirations dropped on the priority list due to the work the Lord was doing in my life by about every slot. So Harley's younger than I am, and so we bumped into each other in the same spot, and then he made a change and ended up at an insurance tech startup, and then I legit followed him there, no question. I was like, this looks like a pretty cool gig. That wasn't really a great fit for us. And then after that, we ended up at this current role, which is a general contracting company, really cool company, and we're doing some awesome stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's just proprietary that we can't talk about, but we're doing a lot of this type of stuff during our day job of process improvement and cleaning up pipelines and things like that. And so he actually, what did you say to them? Like, we were dudes, like we were hanging out all the time, like, but you were so worried that you would lead me to a bad situation.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know, guys. Like, here's Jeremy. Like, you should talk to him, but I
don't know if he's a good fit or not.
It's up to you.
Yeah. So now we work together every day, home office because of COVID, but I've been really grateful to be here. I mean,
this has been a great office for me.
This has been better.
I really love my home office.
Well, and not ironically, that's not the use of the word, but we use your truck in my office.
That's right.
That's the key. But anyway, yeah, man. So there's just like, we're kind of leading these lives that each thing we do during our day helps us be healthy for the other things. And so I think the commitment to family has been, commitment to the Lord, commitment to family, and then having a couple little creative outlets on the side to mix with a very robust day job has been a good fit.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I don't know that I could do it any other way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, especially because we are destined to work together forever, no matter what.
Seemingly.
Yeah.
And now we're partners in the Renaissance Agency.
Yeah, loosely speaking. Yeah.
Shoot, I thought I was going to.
Yeah. Oh, you were going for an equity stake there.
Work my way in real quick.
Yeah, jeepers, creepers. I'm like guarding against the enemy from all sides at this point. Who have I let in my roost? I don't know if that's the right word either, roost. But anyway, I'm drinking. I wanted to mention this. We're going to get on to a topic that is pretty cool. Do you feel, I know you have a lot of understanding of the topic we're going to talk about today, but you feel prepared to have that as the main topic of the episode?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think as prepared as I can be.
Yeah, awesome. So, but I wanted to say I'm drinking your coffee on the main show. We're going to be having you and Mr. Mannion out to talk about coffee, and I'm really excited to learn about that. We're going to talk about the business of coffee, the sourcing of coffee. It's a topic that's been very well discussed, but I think specifically the two of you are a unique group of overlapping perspective because he really knows actual like farmers and source.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And it's sick. And what would you say your kind of main expertise and focus is?
I'm really good at like drinking it mostly, and
on top of that,
and I know how to make it too.
Yeah, the making part has been something you've been interested in, not just from the.
I'm really good at having annoying opinions about it.
Yeah. Somehow I've survived the pretentiousness of it. I'm like, is there creamer? Is there creamer?
My mom sent me a meme the other day, and it was, "How do you take your coffee?" And the answer was, "Seriously, very seriously." And it spoke too true to me.
Dude, I'm so pumped. This episode's clearly gonna suck. The one about coffee, but the reason I brought that up today was, I think we found this weird thing that perfectly fits my taste for things. In like, is a bit counterintuitive. It's a little bit hipster in the take, but how would you describe like? I don't know. I don't want to go long on it. So what's a concise version of what I like for food and things? And
I think if I could say it simply, you want things to be unique and thoughtful, and then also true to what they claim to be.
Yeah. Well, that's actually deeper than I was expecting. I was talking about just unexpected, but I think that's true. That's a moving scale. If you see my Yelp reviews that get a lot of smiles because they're a little bit cutting at times and a little bit.
Yeah, you're Yelp famous for real.
Bro. Poshmark and Yelp. How do you monetize that?
Let me know when you.
Oh wait, Poshmark's literally a marketplace. but I like when things are what they say they are. So there's a better chance. Like I'll tell you this: I went to a place that was not what I expected and did not do well. That was a multi-million dollars new restaurant, and it did poorly. It was a 2-star, like a generously 2-star out of 5. But then I went to Waffle House the next day with my daughter. And they were just straight 4-star. Like the expectations for Waffle House is that maybe it's not as cleanly, maybe the standards are low, but they're open. But I went there and the place was clean. the waitress was incredibly sweet. She could tell that Cecilia was excited about a place that like literally had waffle in the name. Like as a kid, can you like that's like going to
There's a
whipped
whole
cream house.
restaurant
Yeah.
dedicated to
Yeah,
waffles.
so she's like, you know what we can do here? And Cecilia's like, what? And she pops out like the little Waffle House hat and sticks it on her head. And she goes, we can put chocolate on anything. And I was just like, that's amazing. And so that like exceeded my expectations. But this coffee, the reason I brought this up is, I guess you explained to me, and we'll go into this more in the coffee episode, but people burn their coffee for consistency. Is that fair?
Yeah, if you buy coffee from anyone who makes it at scale, and I mean at scale, like large scale, kind of nationally, it is 100% burnt because that's the only way to get coffee to have a consistent taste.
Which makes sense because you can, and we don't want to go down this trail right now, but like anything is consistent when you burn it. Anything's consistent when you dump sugar into it, salt into it. Anytime you like over season or overcook, you're going to get like a well done burger is not something that is going to be distinct from another well done burger.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's the tricky part. But what I found here, you said this wasn't on purpose. It was on purpose, but wasn't like, I just love the inconsistent notes of this. And I think I might be what is this?
So what happened there is I was roasting beans, and I always go to kind of a light to medium roast. When you roast coffee, there's first crack and then there's second crack. First crack is when the coffee is like okay, it's like at the points where you would want to drink it now. And then second crack, you're getting close to a dark roast. And if you go too far past second crack, you're just like burning the beans.
Yeah.
So I always go like right past first crack. What happened with you is I went to first crack, and then I let first crack totally finish on one batch. And then on the second batch, I went to first crack, and I stopped pretty early into first crack.
So the difficulty of
And then I
going
combine
light
those
like
two.
that is that it's not consistent. You get the notes of the actual, because coffee's not a bean, it's a pit.
It's a cherry.
It's a cherry pit,
Yeah.
and which is a hilarious story. We'll talk about on the episode. We learned that from our dude at Hopewell. He gave us kind of the history of that, about how it was just a commodity trade, and beans were going for cheaper. So they called them a bean, but it's actually a pit. They're like, oh, we don't need that weird shell around it. And it's like the cherry, the weird shell is a cherry. That's the fruit. That's what's valuable. It's like, nah, we're going to throw that out, you know? But anyway, this weird, like, you don't know quite as well what you're going to get.
No, and you can get pretty consistent, but
I don't
every
want it.
every bean is going to be different. Like, there's
I've
just nothing
enjoyed
you can do.
every sip of this because it's been so unexpected.
Yeah.
And so keep that coming for me, man. That's really great. So, man, I am excited to talk today on Disrupitated Renaissance Radio about Movie Pass. I think we brought up like 5 or 6 different topics, and this one just, I think, kind of came out of nowhere yet, you know, on our last recording a little bit. It's one that you've been talking about for a long time. So let's make sure we're very clear. No color commentary. What is Movie Pass? No interpretation, just for people who don't know what it is.
Yeah, Movie Pass is a company that had been around for a while, and they did a subscription service where you paid X amount and you could go see.
Do you remember the amount
Well,
initially?
it was initially like $30.
Okay, $30 a month.
$30 a month.
Okay.
And then they just played a bunch with how much they charge, how many movies you could see, and they could never really figure it out. Then finally, they were almost out of money. They're like, whatever, let's see what happens. They lower the price to $10 a month for unlimited movies.
Why were they almost out of money? Did they have no one paying, or?
Yeah, they just didn't have enough users. And then there is, you know, it's kind of like a gym membership, right? So you're hoping that you can get a bunch of people to sign up who don't go see a bunch of movies.
So the ratio is you want people to sign up who use it enough to keep it, but less than the cost of it.
Yeah.
And so you want people that are getting a bad deal in a sense. So, you know, they pay $30 and they get close each month, and then maybe one month they just rip through it and they go see movies all month. But what was probably happening was their users were loyal as heck.
They're movie buffs.
Yeah, so the people that used it, they didn't have enough users, and even more users were killing them because the people who signed up for a subscription to go to the movies were getting, I mean, imagine Jenny's Ice Creams or Graders selling an unlimited ice cream pass. The
I
people
think-
who do it are going to, like,
Right. I think at $30,
Get that
they would have been
diabetes.
okay from just a general, like, is this profitable? But they didn't have enough users for it to matter. Nobody wants to pay $30 for a subscription like that. It was too expensive for the average consumer.
yeah, law of large numbers too. Like, because they had so few users, the impact of the exception was much higher.
Oh, yeah.
So once you have 1 million users, those averages are going to work out
Right.
dependably. But suddenly you have them. And also, I don't know that they calculate. I don't know this. This literally don't know. Did they calculate the cost of movies regionally? So like, were there people in Boston with like boutique theaters that were getting like $20 tickets or something?
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the problem, man. Like when I go see a movie now, I'm going to go on $5 Tuesdays when it's super cheap.
Right. We're already on kind of a subscription in a sense because we can go to a matinee 4 times a month if we want. That's obviously not the case.
When I had Movie Pass, I was like, okay, it's Friday night. Let's go to a movie.
$18. Let's go.
My friend would say, hey, you want to go see that movie you just saw? Why not? I'll go see it again.
Bro,
why do I care?
I'm going to do my work there. Yeah.
And people were doing that
Hi,
stuff.
Jenny. 5A, please. Is that a laptop? Are you recording? No, I'm doing some spreadsheets. People are just getting in out from the cold. Texas has no power, so they're using their Movie Pass to go hang out at this theater. That's not real, but yeah. Dude, okay, so but what did they prove? I think that it's easy. For example, Napster failed and also at the same time completely changed the entire music industry. People would say Napster destroyed, but I think we would take probably the position on this show that the technology is somewhat inevitable.
Yeah.
In the sense that like once one person thinks of it, someone's going to do it. And our capitalist society is made up. It's not the only way, but it's been a pretty good way for some. It's been damaging for others, but our system is set up that the weak get consumed, not weak humans. Well, they do too, unfortunately, but the business models have to sustain in the free market. So disruptive systems are encouraged to a certain point.
Yeah, except by the businesses they're trying to disrupt.
And then you've got exactly. And then those businesses have influence,
right? And power.
So what did they prove? I guess that's my original question. Is like, what did they prove was good to your summation there?
Yeah, I think they proved that Americans at large still really like going to movies because there was a big concern that the movie industry, as we know, was dying.
Yeah, you can watch it on your iPhone.
Netflix was chewing it up.
That's right.
Streaming's so powerful. Now we have Disney Plus.
Yeah,
and
which weirdly is basically the same model. I know that sounds weird, but you have production costs, and the production costs vary wildly.
Yeah,
I mean, it's insane. Like Mandalorian, that costs some money.
Oh, for sure.
So you have this variable cost. And then you have variable consumers paying a subscription for unlimited viewing.
Yeah.
I mean, in that sense, streaming is Movie Pass without the physical going to the movies.
And that overhead is a huge difference.
That's right. To scale, the cost of producing for the streaming company per user doesn't go up. And I think that's the thing. And like we talked about your idea. We won't go into that today, but like one of the things that I'm perplexed about movies and movie theaters is every idea is somehow making it slightly smaller and boutique because of the overhead cost of the giant building.
Yeah.
But the problem is you have to be big enough to get that feeling of the big screen.
Right.
Because I don't spend a lot on TVs and I have a 60 whatever inch. I'm the small TV guy.
Yeah.
And I have a 60 something inch TV downstairs that I'm very pleased with. My parents bought a TV without measuring. Love you, Mom and Dad. And Mom was furious because they have a reasonable sized living room. And I think Amanda and my dad, I'm getting the story wrong, bought like an 80-inch TV or something.
I don't see a problem.
I don't see a problem at all. But there was like questions if it would clear the ceiling.
Hey,
on the stand. But that's my point is like with the distance and scale, it's the same thing with pay-per-view. We used to go to, I'm bringing on a second point here, so I'll leave it to you and go back. But what's the difference between going out to the place with the wings and the, you know, all that stuff to enjoy the screaming of the crowd versus just, man, like we spend a good bit of our income making our living rooms and stuff and where we watch TV flipping sweet.
Yeah, I don't know that you could spend enough to make it match the experience you get in a movie.
That's what I'm saying. And so I feel like their experience is so anchored on the elaborate nature of the giant building, lots of seats, amazing sound. And I just don't know. I don't even feel the same when I go to an outdoor theater. There's more space. There's a bigger screen. But there's something, like, I like it better objectively. I would objectively enjoy it more because I like nature, the experience of getting together with people, the smells. There's always a fire going somewhere. objectively, but it certainly does not give you that big screen feel.
Yeah, and I like if there's a movie I'm really interested in, I have to watch it in IMAX. So
Yeah, the theater experience is not even theater experience enough. You
Right.
have to do IMAX.
Yeah.
Not 3D though.
no, 3D sucks.
It's a gimmick.
Yeah, it's trash.
Yeah. It's my body is physically incapable of taking it in a way that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I love the idea. I do enjoy it hypothetically, but I don't feel good watching it. I'm doing too much.
No, and it doesn't add anything,
No.
in my opinion.
The gotcha thing where they jump out is
That's-
like the only thing. Like
that's
the
fun
thing
for kids.
The thing. Well, it gives kids nightmares.
Oh,
There's been so many cases of kids like that suspended reality.
I didn't know that.
And there's just, it would be interesting if we had a large swath of like participants online. It'd be interesting to do a survey on that. Maybe we'll get the From the Mid Pod guys to do it for us in the meantime.
That's right.
But that inability of kids to, even just their imaginations from a book sometimes will create nightmares.
Yeah,
and
that
things.
makes sense.
But then you've got like this monster flying at you. And it's pretty bad. But that's the point. The point is like, what's the essence of that big screen experience for you?
So I think for me, it's a couple things. Movies and going to the movie theater has been like directly tied to my childhood.
In what way?
My mom worked nights for the most of my childhood, and so oftentimes
Shout out to Knights.
That's right. Shout out to all the nights. Oftentimes, she would pull me out of school early, and we would go to see a matinee.
I love that behavior, by the way. It's so hard for me to get away with because my wife is the fuzz. She's 5'0" because she's the office administrator at my
That's right.
kid's school. But I would love to sneak my kids out to do something sick.
Dude, do it. Like, it's so worth it. It feels like it feels special because you're
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving school.
Like I want to pull my kids all struggle in different ways and succeed in different ways. And like I want to pull one of my kids out during science to go to some sort of science exhibit.
Yeah, or do something like
Or just do something fun or just walk in the park.
Yeah. But so she would do that. We would do that all the time. And I wouldn't know about it. So like it'd be 2:00 or whatever. And I'd get called to the office and there's my mom. Like, oh, cool. We're going
Which
to the movie.
also getting called to the office is not exciting.
Yeah, it was for me because like I knew
You-
if I
you
was
had that mystery.
I didn't do anything. I knew if I was getting called to the office,
Bro,
it's because my mom
There
was
was
here.
never a moment where I got called to the office where it wasn't a bad deal. We did not go to movies, let me tell you that.
That's
And number
right.
two, like, dude, I don't even remember most of that. It's so weird, but I don't remember hardly any of that. And I remember little moments. I remember waving to my sister during math class as she would walk by because I was always in the hall. And
just trolling the hallways.
no, bro, I'd always get sent out of class.
Oh,
Yeah, you can imagine.
bro, your teachers were so done with you. They're like, just go sit outside.
No, bro. Somebody yelled out "squirt" as my nickname when I got introduced in 6th grade math or whatever. Shout out to Mr. Dub. Terrible experience, but I think you were doing the best you could.
Shout out to all the dubs.
Shout out to the Dubs, bro. And so he just didn't know how to handle me. It was no big deal, but it was a huge deal, defining moments in my life. But anyway, somebody introduced me, so he'd call me that, and then like he was like really condescending, and I just had an authority issue and was also
yeah.
very witty.
Oh,
And so I would get one good crack off before I would go to the hall, and it was just always.
and you just knew,
He also knew he could get me out of there by making a comment
right?
because I would
That
just
makes
snap
sense.
him, and just a quick little snap, and I would be out in the hall. So my sister would see me as she's walking. I would just be chilling by the locker, just sitting there and
Just doing
time out,
nothing, right.
and time out at school,
Yeah.
and for a year, and so she's like, "Hey, Jeremy," I'm like, "Hey, bud," and so it's really funny.
I had a teacher who would only call me other motorcycle names. So I was Yamaha, Suzuki.
That's kind of cute though.
Kawasaki.
Like that's
It was
kind of
in-
affectionate.
It was endearing. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I
Yeah.
thought it was funny.
He didn't call you like idiot or something.
No.
So you had a different experience
Yeah,
than me.
Sure did,
Yeah.
bro.
Yeah.
I went to a good school.
I was not a good kid in school from a school standard, but yeah, this is the story I tell. One time he goes, "Kids, I hope there's no kids listening. This is a bad thing. Don't do this." But I'll give you some flavor of what.
Do you think you have a lot of kids listening to your podcast?
I hope not.
You think?
I actually kind of hope so. I talk to young artists all the time. Here's the deal. I had great trouble because of my arrogance and lack of discipline. Do not go down this road. Here's a funny anecdote. He said something about me being stupid and I wouldn't amount to anything. And I said, like what? 6th grade math teacher?
You
Shout
said
out.
that in 6th grade, bro.
Yeah, bro. And he wasn't even done with his sentence. Like, it was like, you know how it is. And like I had the speed back then, but none of the none of the character and none of the
Right.
discipline. So I was just cutting. And,
Yeah, that's a problem.
avoiding punches to the head, So anyway, math teachers, I think it's remarkable what you do. One of my goals would be to get to where I want to be so that I would be able to become a good teacher. And I would love to spend, some of the later time teaching. I would just love that in a situation. But anyway, that one was a zinger and it was difficult for both of us.
Yeah, bro.
I spent some time out in the hall.
So I think that movie theater experience is still something that people enjoy. I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
But movie theaters don't make any money on their tickets.
Yep.
They break even, typically. So they're making all their money on concessions.
And like we said, we have all the way down to very high definition handheld. So it has to be big. It has to be bigger than it ever had to be before, or it has to be charming, or it has to be something. There has to be an adjective that draws you to that theater.
Yeah, I think people know, like, you leave a movie, like IMAX for me.
Dude, that experience of leaving into the hallway and then going back into the real world when you've gone to an IMAX movie, that's a distinct feeling.
And it's made me think that movies that weren't great were incredible because
That's right. Like seeing a band live.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's that. And I think that's a really good example. It's like seeing a band live. The problem is I can take my family to see a band, like, depending on the artist, but you can go to just anywhere in Columbus, not during COVID, and watch an artist play for like a $10 door charge, maybe.
Yeah.
Or just like go buy
But
drinks.
to your point that I kind of took you off of, they don't make any money on the ticket.
Yeah. And it's expensive to get in the door anyway. So if you go not during a matinee, you're paying like 12, sometimes $15 a ticket. So now if you're going with if you're
And
going
they're
with a
still
family
not
of
stoked
4,
about that. Like they're not like making a killing. When we go and it's $15 a ticket, we're like, oh man, they're getting them premium prices.
Yeah.
What could they possibly be making? $2, $3?
All that money goes to the studio.
That's
for
right.
the most part.
Yeah.
The theater gets to cover their costs, and all that money goes to the studio. So then you walk in, and then it's $8 for a soda, it's $10 for popcorn, and
It's the only way they know how to do it, and nobody wants that.
you're spending $100.
Nobody
Take your family
feels
to the
good when
movies.
you live.
Yeah.
When you live. No one feels good when you live. What am I? This Billie Eilish song or something? Triple X Nation or whatever. What's that? A rapper?
You're asking the wrong guy.
Tenation?
Triple X Tenacion, I think is how you say it.
He was killed.
Was that? Oh yeah, he
He
was
shot.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Way to really bring us down there, Jeremy.
So anyway, you're talking about your childhood. No, that's another topic. That's a really interesting SoundCloud releases is something that we should definitely cover
Oh, that'd be a lot of fun.
because that's very disruptive.
Yeah,
And confusing for a lot of people.
and not even just necessarily SoundCloud, but how many artists like how many artists right now are not holding on to all their music?
That's right.
And normally
All the way back to Jackson and everybody else, like people not owning their libraries.
Well, even just the way you release music, right? Like typically an artist will make a bunch of songs and then drop an album after like a year or two. And artists now are just like, I made a new song, here you go.
yeah,
Here you
because
go.
people aren't listening
And
to
they're
albums.
just dropping left
Let's
and
do
right.
a show on that.
So that'd be cool.
Because I
yeah.
think we can talk about Taylor and what she did.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the history of the economic
And
structure.
she dropped 3 albums this year
Yeah.
as an example of that.
Yeah. It's a weird thing to not be able to do anything that people like, but still somehow be highly consumed. That's a weird, like, it's almost like what the From the Mid Pod guys talk about how Star Wars fans are the most like
Ugh.
incredible but horrible. Like
One of the-
they're consistently consuming the content and keeping the franchise up, but also terrible.
They hate it no matter what.
Yeah. And that reminds me of like Taylor Swift fans and things like
I felt like her folklore album was pretty well received.
I did. It felt a little bit like a pander. I don't think we got to get back to movies, but I don't think it was a pander. I think that it felt like a pander because it was at me. That's who they made it for.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
And
And me too, guys like us.
yeah, Bon Iver.
They made it for dads.
But here's the thing, Midwest dads.
Midwest dads.
Yeah,
you're exactly right.
So Bon Iver was a producer on that album, co-wrote. Kanye's been talking about buying land, and he's like, "You're not going to believe this, but for the price of a Maybach, you can buy 100 acres in the Midwest." First of all, no, you can't. No, you can't, guys. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Stop coming up and buying up my land. I don't have the money yet, and I want that, Kanye. So you're welcome here, obviously, because we're from the Midwest.
Friend of the show.
We're
Kanye
actually
West.
really excited to have you here, but please stop. I want it. Harley wants it.
That's right.
But yeah, it felt like a pander. Justin Timberlake started wearing flannels a few years back and things like that. But I think what's actually happening is those guys just hate this fake coast life that they're living. And I'm not hating on that life, but I'm just saying like the fame based, a lot of people are just leaving all that paparazzi vibe and just going out in the woods and
Hiding.
it's what we already kind of like. We already
That's
kind of
right.
know it.
Yeah.
So they don't make their money off of ticket sales. I'm okay weaving on this.
Yeah.
They don't make their money off of ticket sales, and the only thing they found that's consistent is just ripping your face off with food. And when I think of theme parks, anywhere that I go where I'm held hostage on what I can eat and drink,
Sucks.
I'm actually looking for opportunities to game that system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it feels unethical.
Totally.
It feels like, and I know that's not true. I know that I can eat before I go, but their persuasive ability and Pavlovian ability to get me to want a Coke and a popcorn is just beyond my level of self-control.
Yeah, and now like I buy it just because I'm like, I want this movie theater to stay open.
Yeah, so it's like a Kickstarter, but on a
Exactly
100-year-old
right.
guy who's like, I just want to make my own sweaters. That's AMC, by the way, is a 100-year-old guy selling his sweaters, and you're like, you know what? Let's do this.
So what do you think AMC can do? Like, we know that there is interest in going to movies. Right now there's a huge run on their stock. It seems like it's inflated.
It's 100%
it's a
inflated.
bubble.
It's the stock boys saying, you know what? I'm so sick of these brokerages treating things we love and care about with disrespect as a number.
Yeah.
It's like my dad getting laid off at a company because some CEO downsizes his department and they don't realize that he's literally keeping that up. And you know, it's like they're like, you know, forget you guys. And they're propping it up, but it is a bubble.
Yeah, so here's the weird thing about it. It's a bubble, but it's still amounted to a dramatic influx of
I guess every investment,
capital.
every dedicated investment is a bubble because people are going to sell. So there's like
Right.
the just question of how high, how fast, and how long. The
Yeah,
bubble's gonna
and
last.
from what I can tell, a lot of these people want to hold the stock because they know it's a bubble, and so if they all decide to sell at the same time, everyone will lose it. So a lot of
Yeah.
these guys are holding and kind of hoping that AMC can like
you know,
get
it's
it to where
funny.
the stock isn't artificially inflated
Yeah,
anymore.
use this money well and make it actually valuable, but they're going to end up. There's some tricky insider trading law issues.
They are going to get smashed.
They don't understand how that works.
the FCC is already checking it out.
Yeah. You asked how do they make money? So I
So-
think the premise that go ahead.
I just want to know like what do you think they can do, because they created a subscription model for $30 a month.
Yeah.
That I don't think did.
I
very
think that
well.
solves part of the problem. If you're asking, you're kind of just asking like, what's the answer?
Yeah, I want movies to stick around.
Yeah.
So Jeremy,
Yeah.
AMC calls you, say, "Hey, Renaissance man, we need movies to be good."
I'd hang up on him.
What
Don't
do
call
we
me
do?
Renaissance man. Call me back. call me whatever you think from listening to every episode of the show and studying it, what you think I want to be called. Yeah, man. I think where we would start is the same place you and I start with process improvement in our day job, which is what needs to happen. So number one, they have to get people there. They have to draw people to the building because they're a location-based service. So
Yep.
so that's important.
And they have to be a location-based service.
Yeah. They don't in the sense that like they can. So, you know, Kokosing River Outfitters as the quintessential example of this, as they live this out every day. Like I said, I just help them put words to it, help them say what they were already saying. They're living no different other than the the gains.
Mhm.
They're living no different than they did before me. They're truly authentically who they are. So if you look at an AMC or any sort of model like that that's stuck, they're literally just a pay structure on a product. They're a popcorn company. It's obnoxious. They're a marketing company that does popcorn because the movie draws people in. They're marketing. They're paying.
Well, they're
for-
not even really paying for the marketing.
Well, they are at their ticket prices.
Well, yeah,
So,
that's true.
so I'm saying they're using someone else's product to draw people in a building and selling popcorn.
Yeah.
So in its simplest form, they're a concession business. They're a restaurant, an
Mhm.
unsuccessful restaurant. So where you start with a company like that, in my mind, is you have to draw people. First of all, you have to decide who you are and what we stumbled on with that feeling when you have to find all of those feelings because movie theaters are nostalgic and you have to bring in new users. And frankly, like there's something special about a ringing telephone to me. My grandma calls me on a ringing telephone and I pick it up and I talk to grandma. There's something about that click that happens when I lift up the hammer. There's something about the way it feels on my ear. There's something about the experience of picking that up that would make me want that.
Yeah.
You know, now if you
Do you
are,
think you can build a long-term business model out of nostalgia?
I think you have to at least understand it.
Okay.
You have to at least understand it because it's a motivator. But like if you grew up in a system where you're visiting your family, this is very real. Like we have friends that have their experience with a phone is to click because they're in prison.
Right.
They're in jail. They don't have the same nostalgia. And so the delivery mechanism of the nostalgia is also very subjective. And so they need to figure out what is most consistently successful with that nostalgia as part of it, because I believe they're a nostalgia business. Secondly, once they know what they're doing, what matters about that, and they can define and describe the feeling of walking out of the theater, the feeling of walking into the theater, I think they underestimate the feeling of getting your ticket ripped off. I think just literally everything that goes well, they've got the cheapest kids they can. Love those guys, but like they don't have the pomp and circumstance that they used to have, where it was like, oh, here's your ticket. You're going down. You know, do you need me to walk you down? Can I get you anything? Like, they don't have that feeling. There's nothing premium about it. It's actually that waiting in line for a Supreme launch feels different than waiting in line for a movie ticket. You know, and they're like, well, let's open it up. They don't understand that feeling and what you could get. People still go to the theater, to the opera, and don't enjoy the opera because of the feeling of going to the opera.
That's a good example.
And so there's a lot there. Number two is, how do you use that, or use whatever resources you have to draw people into the building? I think the answer only comes once you understand your value and have clarity there. But I think there's something about the fact that they should lean into the fact that they are a place people always eat. And there's a couple mechanisms there. There's things like making it worth the dollars, but keeping, make it worthwhile to spend a lot of money there to eat. And I don't think the answer is things that you already can get across the street that are expensive. You go to those eat and diners, and there's $25 pizzas or whatever, and they're not good.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up.
Yeah, so it has to be something unique. And I think it's something like the feeling that Annie Ann's gives, but like 9 of those, and maybe meal-based, maybe drink-based, maybe something. But they're not good at running their bars. They're not good at running their restaurants. They're only just serving drinks and making things. So they're not like leaning into that, like, I made this for you.
So do you think you could do like a hipster kind of like high-end cocktail bar?
No question. You have to do everything. It's like what we talked about. If you make a donut, we talked about this in the last Disrupitated segment, is what does it taste like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? What does it remind you of? Where do you have to go to get it? Scarcity. You have to pile everything you know, and then find other people that know things that you don't know and pile it into that donut. Now imagine you're talking about a service-based, experiential, sensory thing. Could you sell box seats? Could you have customized, cleaned out? Because I know theaters have done that for generations, hundreds of years.
Yeah.
You have box seats that are exponentially more valuable. The meal is prepared. Maybe there's a personal chef. And they're like, well, we can't afford to sell popcorn. How do we do that? You bring people in. If your CEO has to go to Mark Cuban and say, Mark, I want you to be a box owner at our most prestigious theater, and you and your family will always have the ability to go to any of our theaters forever. It's $10,000 a year, but you have to be able to say Mark Cuban owns a box.
Right.
So there's an infinite number of ideas, and I think in its most basic form, there's economic structures that we've talked about, things like, in its basic form, a food court where you give up your profits on the food to get a consistent booth revenue.
Yeah, I'm concerned that they would be able to make that work.
Well, the reason you do it is because now you have 7 multinational companies who are all trying to get people in your building.
Yeah, that's a good.
So that's
a good point.
That's what that is. This is a partnership to say, hey, you're going to have an equal crack at this. We already have precedent for high prices. Now we're going to give people choice, and we're going to go, let's just grab it at the theater. So you have that, but you still got to lean in. That's just saying, let's put Annie Ann's in there. Let's put, you can't do, Chinese food or noodles or something, because people literally, can you imagine having an economic structure that people are so angry at how much they paid that they purposely, can you think of another scenario, a restaurant, where people purposely go, screw you, I'm going to throw everything on the floor?
Yeah.
Have you ever left a theater where people haven't purposely thrown stuff on the floor?
Yeah, it's absurd. They just don't care.
Yeah, but it's not a public bathroom at a rest stop. Those same people don't do that other places. I think they're ticked off.
Yeah, probably subconsciously.
And it's also dark.
And it is, you can't see.
But my point is, like, that's a behavior that demonstrates that they don't respect you.
Yeah, there's a small chance that the studios can solve this for the movie theaters as well.
They're going to all have to.
A long time ago, the studios tried to just have their own movie theaters, and the government shut it down because they thought it was a monopoly for them to make the movies and then also own the means of seeing the movies. And
Fast
so,
forward to every business.
yeah, so now we have streaming, and it's really not that different. And so maybe, Disney is like, well, we're gonna make a ton of money on this movie when it hits Disney Plus, like money. Our users are gonna watch it. We're gonna get more users, whatever. So let's still do studio release, but instead of taking all of the profits from the studio release, we'll take less because we have this other option that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
There's a chance that even just that alone can give the movie theaters a little bit of breathing room. But I still think for them to truly succeed, we need to see innovation in that space.
Yeah, and the point is, you just haven't impressed me as a consumer enough. And so, like, let's just make up a bunch of models. Okay, so you have restaurants that are valuable, and somehow the space is dealt with in a way that you're not like it's normal to just go eat there. And it's like, let's just catch a movie. Malls do that, but they're $1 billion, and there's so few malls that are okay. Another model would be that it becomes a real estate deal, and there's boutique theaters that are exclusive that always sell out because of their whatever, and the studios can compete to be the only showing in that theater. Those would be, but there's an unlimited number of models. I think the point is just for me is it just feels lazy. It feels like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. It's like you guys are not panicking, and I think they think like maybe they think they're okay, and if they don't touch anything, it won't break.
Yeah, the other option, I don't know exactly how they could do it, but if they could turn those into multi-purpose spaces, because there's so many movies that come out every year that like nobody really cares to see in theaters.
Yeah,
but they have to show them in theaters.
Well, that would bring scarcity too.
But if they instead of just saying, "Hey, we're open for movies 24/7," they did other things, and then for the blockbusters that come out every, the 4 or 5 movies every year that sell out like crazy still, that could be another option.
But they can't sublet the space because that devalues the space. They have to come up with a way to say, we are that's the point. If the like what you're saying, if the theaters own their space, which I assume they do, they're building them.
Yeah, I think so.
Or they co-own it with the bank or whatever. They have to be someone that says, because like they're in the real estate and popcorn business right now.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you have to be, if you're doing a multi-function, it has to be like, we are bringing in some of the best shows in the world. And part of that is blockbuster movies. I'm talking about a John Mayer boutique concert that only sells 120 tickets. How do you do that? How do you pay for it? I don't know, man. Figure it out. Call somebody and figure it out. Figure out why John Mayer wants to be there. Cameo is another one that is super sick that we could talk about anytime.
Yeah, Cameo's bizarre. Well, sort of bizarre.
Cameo on a short terms. I got one for my wife from one of the Weasley brothers.
That's right.
On a Harry Potter thing. He's a redhead.
The least known Weasley brother, right?
Yeah, that's what he said. 7th favorite is how he preferred to do it. But I thought that was awesome. But you go on Cameo and you can. I love this stuff. Remember I said in the last episode I talked about selling your waste in a sense.
Yeah.
And Cameo allows you to send a video message or a text message. You can have a text conversation too.
Oh, I didn't know
that's
that.
verified. And you get a message from these celebrities. So you can pay $400 to get, somebody from whatever. Or you can pay $2,000 to get, LeBron James to send a birthday message or whatever.
Good luck.
Yeah, but he'll do it, and that's the thing, because it's 30 seconds.
Yeah. The issue Cameo's running into is it seems to be portrayed in the space that it's kind of the last thing you do to cash in on your fame. So there's sort of a
Twilight career sort of thing.
Yeah, so like guys like LeBron would be like, I'm above Cameo.
Yeah,
and you see that.
I think you have a chance there. I think you're right, but you have a chance there to say, this is what people do when they've made it, and they don't need to, but they do it because they love their fans.
Yeah,
I think you could brand it that way. But yeah, like I didn't get a hold of.
Right, like Daniel Radcliffe's not on it.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
I got a hold of one of the Weasley. But here's the deal, man. Like these guys maybe have acted in like 3 or 4 movies. They've done way more. A lot of the people on there have done way, way more than 99% of aspiring actors.
Totally.
And so to get on there and to make $400, $600, $700 a day, sending really thoughtful messages. And the one that he did for us, which was awesome, was so thoughtful.
Yeah, he did a good job. I appreciated that.
He kind of went the extra mile. He only had to do 30 seconds. He did like a minute and a half.
It didn't seem like he phoned it in.
No, he didn't. And it was so sweet. And it's one of those thought that counts things. And I guess that's the question would be, does it have to be the top of the line? experience to be special. I mean,
Yeah.
because I could afford to do it. There's none of those guys I could have afforded
Yeah.
to get Mark Cuban to do it or whatever. Yeah, man. Pretty cool. But yeah, I think there's a lot of places on the movie theaters could play. Movie Pass ended up debunked. But they showed that people wanted subscriptions. And I think going head to head with the theaters was wrong.
Well, yeah, going head to head was a problem, and I think they proved that people still care to see movies at a reasonable price.
But it feels like a Groupon thing now, unfortunately. A Groupon experience. You're looking for a deal.
Right. Yeah, I think the answer is you reduce the square footage of the space, but maintain excellence. Like
All the stuff I talked about, you lean way into, but you have to create scarcity.
well, yeah, you create scarcity and then you reduce your overhead by making it smaller. So
I'm interested to know what that would reduce.
So, if you scale down to where it's a theater that holds 10 people, you can theoretically make it a lot smaller, and then ideally, it's not going to have nearly as much cost. You have 100, you have like a 10-foot screen instead of a 20.
It has to be
30-foot
whatever
screen.
the number is.
But
that gives you that feeling.
You maintain the aspect ratio, and then
Yeah.
I'm convinced that sound, having like mind-blowing sound, is a huge deal. So you really go in on sound in that space, and then
Which Bose, as an example, in a technology company, has cracked. Like they can use much less stuff in a much smaller space and create an immersive experience that nobody else.
yeah, and all that will reduce your cost, and then from there,
You know what?
I think you can figure it out.
We're working off of, by the way, this is, if you're having ideas right now, you should be, because this is working off of a concept that Harley's been laughed at about for a while, and we've been just grinding over, but he's really owned, I'll pop in and make comments and thoughts, but really he's owned this thought. So we won't give away the whole thing, but you know what that also does in terms of partnerships? That is available at a consumer level.
Yeah,
All of those goods. So partnerships for essentially having to the partners that come in to help with this, to fund it, you're creating showrooms.
right. That's a really good point,
Bro,
That's
that's
a really good
sick.
point. Yeah. And so you're kind of occupying the space in between a really nice home theater and a traditional movie theater. And I think that's got to be the way you go.
The questions
know.
are the questions that I have. No, I love where your head's at with that. And I don't mean that in the traditional code sense of I just told. That's a funny thing. So that's the phrase sometimes I'll use if I just told somebody something and then they sell it back 30 seconds later.
Oh,
I
yeah.
go, I love where your head's at with that, which I should probably stop doing. So I'm going to call it out on myself. But that was not one of those. You've been carrying this away. Something that I can feel confident with the other parts of the idea you shared with me is my podcast setup, for example, is fully compact and secured now and can be set up in 5 minutes
Yeah.
and then torn back down. And so if you can imagine your concept with a locker that's secured like a safe, and your setup people are able to make those modular changes that you talked about very, very quickly
Right.
for your next group, that would sustain your model that you're talking about at still a very high level. And you would want to use as many. The shared pack would be the things that in every setup we use these things.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think that piece might close some of the gap on the funding to say a QR code that literally directs you to everything you just experienced, itemized for
Yeah, that'd
purchase
be cool.
and delivery.
Yeah. And if you reduce your overhead, you can theoretically get the same cut you were getting from the studios,
Right.
and now you're making more profit on the ticket itself.
I was
And
thinking
then maybe you
yeah.
do vending machines for.
Well, your
concessions
primary idea
and
was
stuff
not
like that.
ticket. Your primary idea was space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying ticket as a general cost to be there, whatever that is,
Yeah. Yeah.
splitting the cost and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Whatever that looks like.
And that can fluctuate.
But it's got to show movies.
Also, the shape is, if it's shippable, if it's easily shippable, I think we all picture rectangles with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't have to
It can be a half dome.
Yeah.
It can
totally.
It can have options.
Whatever
like
that is, I think ideally it's something that is self-contained. It can be picked up and moved.
Yeah.
I think you could do that.
That was foundational to your idea. But yeah, the short answer is a space that can be a lot of things, that's impressive, that meets those parameters of exciting, that is flexible in both its location and in its function, is what Harley's been pitching. And then we have 100 ideas of what those functions could be.
Yeah,
But
so-
primarily, it's the movie theater.
Yeah, we're looking for our first round of investors. We're raising
my
our
gosh.
Series A funding.
Yeah, if that's real, we can start pursuing those guys. I don't think you and I have the bandwidth to
Reach
take
out
this on right now.
Reach out to Renaissance Radio. And
Yeah, evidently.
and
Well,
Ren-
that's cool. This call started with you trying to gain equity stake, and it ended with you giving it away. That's pretty fun. I've been saying this whole time, like very clearly, this is Harley's idea. I've just occasionally, and Harley's like, yeah, Renaissance owns it, so just give us a call. I'm happy to help where I can, but Jeremy's going to make a lot of money off this.
Yeah,
It's not my deal, man. It's
yeah,
your deal.
just call the Renaissance man and he'll take care
Oh
of it.
gosh, please don't do that. But yeah, man, that's so crazy. So I think, how would you summarize this episode? What are some key takeaways here?
I think the big thing here is, leaning on one of the big things that we do with Disrupitated is we look at not necessarily just the successes of these disruptive business models, but also the failures, and then seeing what those failures proved. And then from there, we just talked about a bunch of ways that other business models are successful and how we can apply that to this space. And that is kind of the ethos of what
We're doing
what we
here.
talk about at Disrupitated.
Yeah, man. I think the leaning into understanding that experience, those things sound cheesy, but they're all you got, because you are calling on, even just a positive experience is nostalgia. A positive experience from yesterday is, I think I'll do a loose translation here of what I'm trying to say, which is basically that nostalgia is just the warmth of remembering something and the immersion of your senses of remembering something. I intellectually remember things all the time, but there's certain things, certain moments with my wife that I remember and I could describe to you three-dimensionally because I remember what it smelled like, what it looked like, how we felt, the context of the situation, what led us there, what happened after.
Yeah.
And so understanding that piece is vital to explaining it. And dude, I'm telling you, if movie theaters were able to capture those words, things like hangry, things like words that people have used in the past that you go, that's it. That's the word. And you don't just have to what's the word I'm looking for? You don't have to just blend two words together like that. But knowing how to tap into what people are feeling. Like I say with the consulting work, you know how you're saying, like, this isn't brilliance. This is just me explaining how I feel all the time. You know how it feels really, really clear to you and you start talking to somebody and they think they get it, but then when they sell it back to you, it's just like you have this disappointment that washes over you and you feel like, do I go in further? Do I bail? Because they just didn't get what you were saying or they equated you to something else. You're working on something crazy unique and you have this new concept and they go, oh, like Johnny did in blank blank. And you go,
Stop.
Oh, but do you know that feeling? Like you're writing a song and they go, oh, this reminds me of that Phil Collins song. It's devastating.
Yeah.
And that feeling, if you're a creator or an artist, you know, I didn't even have to say all those words. You get that feeling. And that's how I'm able to communicate what I do. Movie theaters have not figured that out. They don't know how people feel when they're at their best and when they're at their worst. And I think movie theaters are probably best at describing that horrible feeling of getting a $36, some 16-year-old saying that'll be $37. And you got 2 drinks and 2 popcorns. And
then you sit down and there's popcorn and spilled soda all over your
yeah,
seat.
what you just told me was worth 10x what it was worth right outside is now on the floor in front of me.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't have the positive immersion of nostalgia around it that they can explain. And then additionally, what you were talking about was like you have this background and you also have the success of the subscription model, but they didn't work the problem to the next stage.
Right.
They went, oh, that might work.
Let's just do that, but more expensive.
Yeah, and like they didn't look at it and go, why are people getting involved? Are these the same people? Are these different people? Did they basically just bring in different people who went there and went,
Yeah, maybe.
these are questions that we're just coming up off the top of our head as consumers. And it's
Right.
like, I don't know that they work the problem that way. And so I think that's the ticket. If you're sitting down with your business, it's hard. Get a third party, like Corey said in his episode, like get a third party and get some help. We're happy to talk to you. But the reality is you have to just go hard on the one small thing you have from every single angle you can think of, and then go learn what's happening and map what that's happening, and then start making decisions and pivots quickly from there.
I like it.
Yeah, I think it's that philosophy is a combination of every book we've ever read, mixed with some experience, right?
Yeah,
like you could
yeah, that's fair.
track some of those thoughts back. So, really good, man. Disrupitated. I'm loving it, dude. I'm feeling really good. We've got so many topics we want to cover.
Got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we're not going to pre-record every episode and like stack them up because a lot of this stuff is topical and unwinding as we go. But
And like it could change real fast.
it could change real fast. And so Movie Pass is not going to change.
Nah, it did.
She did. Yeah. Oh, she did.
She did.
She did. So that's another shirt. Why is everything a shirt?
Because you want to make T-shirts real bad.
I want to make T-shirts, but here's the deal. I can't just send it off to the printers, man. I got to go figure out which shirts are the best, which ones don't shrink.
You're gonna sell a $55 T-shirt that says "She did" on it.
To be very clear, I will pay $55 to make it. So if you're getting excited about these T-shirts we're talking about, they're expensive.
It's gonna be a $210
I'm sorry.
T-shirt.
I'll be honest with you. The first one might be. You know how I do prototypes? Like it's like retail stuff and it's like the best stuff. And then I go to the printer and I go, I want you to make this.
Bro, if you can reasonably get it to 210, like, and it makes sense, it's not just 210 for fun.
Yeah.
I'll be your first customer.
Missimo it will be there because it's probably going to be a handmade shirt and it's probably going to have art as a tag. And like, so when we get there, but I'm going to release that prototype line, which is going to be, I'm really excited about this. The designer stuff, I'm going to run a prototype line parallel to it. So I've got a dresser I'm working on and some other goods that are going to be like way over the top stuff that I want to own for myself.
Yeah, mostly like gold plated.
I mean, to be honest, if it fits, it will do that. But I'm not a big gold plate guy. But there might be embedded rare items in the drawer, like
pearls.
Take the price cap off of it. I'm going to pay high retail to make it.
Yeah, right.
But I want to run a parallel prototype line, which will be more like birch plywood, paper, pencil, just that sort of thing. And
I think it sounds sick.
I think same thing with the shirt. Maybe there's a sketch design of the shirt instead of a printed design of the shirt, and the sketch shirt I think will be sick.
Yeah,
grays and tans and whites.
And that one will be cheaper. It'll only be like $115.
And that's probably true. Look, dude, cheap shirts have already been made. We're gonna have to figure it out,
dude.
and it might be cheap too. I might find a way to make it cheap, but I just don't see everything's so fast fashion right now. Like if you don't have kids to make it, I don't. You're not going to be in the same price point.
Yeah, it'll be made out of leather. Yeah, just a fully leather T-shirt.
I think we're going the wrong direction on that. But thanks for listening to Renaissance Radio, specifically the Disrupitated by Harley segment. We can't wait to talk to you again. See you soon.
See you next time.